This review has been made possible by Toyota of Naperville. As you know, Toyota has tons of brand new Toyotas available for purchase. But did you know that they also have a remarkable selection of used cars? Head on over to toyotaofnaperville.com and look through hundreds of used cars for sale right now. Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 2005 Lexus LS430. Up front is a 4.3 liter V8 and down below is a 6-speed automatic transmission. This video is sponsored by CarMarshal.com. If you'd like to support the channel, click the link down in the description below. CarMarshal.com advertises for over 100,000 vehicles across the US. But let's get back to that 4.3 liter V8. Well, it is known as the 3UZ. I've driven a 1UZ on the channel, but now think of 3 of them. That's actually not the case. It's just the more advanced 1UZ. It is a larger displacement. It's a 4.3 liter as opposed to the 1UZ being a 4 liter, but it is a very, very smooth engine. That is what the LS430 is really all about, and that's what we'll talk about here today, is just how smooth this car is. All right, 4.3 liter V8, 3UZ from Lexus, really Toyota, but you know, Lexus. Put it over into sport. Power mode is on. Here we go. Wow. It definitely pulls you. You feel the torque. You know, any V8 is going to make a lot of torque, but just how smooth it did it. You saw me jolt back a little bit. Yeah, I'm reclined a little bit, but that engine is so buttery smooth. 106,000 miles, 14 years later. This thing is so smooth, so elegant, so nice. And that is just, it's great. I absolutely love the 3UZ. I think the 1UZ and 3UZ are two of the best V8s to come out of the 90s and 2000s. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 6-speed automatic transmission. And this was only offered the second half of this 3rd generation. This is the 3rd generation LS. And 2001 and 2002, they only got the 5-speed, but then 2003 to 2006 actually got the 6-speed, which is the more desirable transmission. It's really smooth. Like I keep saying, everything about this car is very smooth, and I really like that. And you get that nicer highway gear for cruising. And last but not least, the LS430 is rear-wheel drive. So let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a bunch of different gauges. On the far left is my coolant, then I have my tachometer, then speedometer, then fuel on the far right, as well as I have some digital gauges down below. On the steering wheel on the right, I have my 2 display options for these center gauges, and then I have my mode buttons, as well as behind the wheel, I do have volume and my cruise control options. Fun fact, this was actually the first Lexus in America to have radar cruise control, which is really neat. Then to the left, I do have my mirror options, auto mirrors, and stuff like that. And then on the door, I actually have 3 different memory seat options, which is really nice. The only other cars that I can really think of having 3 different memory seat options from this era was a Mercedes that I drove in. So that is very high praise. But then also on the door, I do have this nifty little button that will raise and lower where the seatbelt mounts. So if you are taller or shorter, you can adjust it to your liking so it's not strangling you and you have the most comfortable experience, and I really like that. Then lower on the door, we just have the rest of the window switches, lock switches, stuff like that, which I find really funny. On the window switches, it just says all auto. Instead of putting auto on all of the switches, it just says all of them. All of them are automatic. I think that's really funny. Then in the center, we do get a digital clock, outside temperature, stuff like that. This is where this car is going to start to feel dated. So we do have 2 air conditioning vents, which actually do oscillate, which is really cool. I originally saw this in the Toyota Crowns of the early 90s, which is really cool, but these vents actually do oscillate, which is something I feel like is even missing here today. Then we do have the climate controls, auto climate controls, you know, very standard stuff here. It is dual climate zones, so the passenger actually can provide their own temperature, which is really nice. And then we come to the Lexus premium sound system. It's just your standard run-of-the-mill radio. This is before the screen era, and so there's no screen here. It literally is just AM, FM cassette or CD, which it does not have an aux cord, but if you do buy one of these or have one of these, you can get a cassette to aux. So you put it in like a cassette, and then it has a little wire that hangs out, plug that into your phone, and you can stream whatever music you want right into your car. That's actually really nice because cars with CD players and no aux, you can't do CD to aux. So actually in modern ages, it's actually nicer to have a cassette player than a CD player. It's kind of funny, actually. But speaking of CDs, we do have a Hideaway 6-disc changer down below. I really like this because we don't use CDs anymore, and so I can just have my center console look all nice with the hidden CD player. Then I have a button that says Power, ECT, and Snow. This is my transmission settings. Really, you could think of this as sort of sport settings, I guess. Power, obviously going to be sport. Snow is going to help out, obviously, in the snow when you're slipping. And then ECT is just normal. I really like this. It's very much a Japanese thing to have the word power mean sport mode. You know, it's not until recently that Japanese cars really embrace sport mode. They were always sort of power. The old Yunos Cosmos did this. The old Toyota Crowns did this. They have power instead of sport. It's just something interesting. Then to the right of that, I do have a little Hideaway cubbyhole. And then I have my rear sunshade up and down, traction control on and off, and then my heated and cooled seat options. Yes, for 2005, the LS430 has cooled seats as well as heated seats, which is a huge, huge feature. Now you can pretty much get any BMW, Audi, Mercedes, Lexus with cooled seats. That's not that big of a deal, but 14 years ago, it was a lot bigger of a deal. Then we come down to the shifter. I call these the jigsaw shifters because you sort of have to work your way around to find gears and stuff. This is actually a money-saving tactic by Toyota because they don't have to engineer a button as a safety switch. It's just the fact that you can't move it more than one direction. That's the safety switch. And I like it. It is what it is. It's very dated at this point, but this whole car is dated, so I can't really knock it for that. And then I do have a cigarette lighter and an ashtray. Now the seats are very comfortable. Like I said, memory, obviously power, heated, cooled, anything you want a 2005 luxury car seat to do, this car can do it. But speaking of that, the passenger seat actually has power seat options on the left side of it. Now you might be thinking why you would have to reach back like this. That's not why it's there. It's actually because this car was meant to drive people around in, and so if you had a wealthy businessman in the back and you were just a lowly driver and he wanted more footroom but didn't want to say anything, didn't even want to speak to you, he didn't have to. He could move the passenger seat forward to give himself more legroom. That is really interesting. Nice Toyota vehicles have done this for almost 3 decades at this point. And I just think that really speaks volume to the sort of people that bought this car. But before we talk more about that, let's do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2005 Lexus LS430, and the back seats are very, very comfortable. Obviously, longer wheelbase, this is the larger size Lexus, but just the seats themselves, super plush. I do have a center console here with 2 cup holders and my heated seat options. I do have rear heated seats. Again, 2005. Big deal. But I can fold up the center console. I do have a 3rd seat belt. But something really cool that I've never seen in, I think, literally any car I've ever been in. I have a mirror with a light. Both the rear passengers get their own mirrors with lights. I've never seen this before, and I'll talk about it in a little bit. But this is really a rider's car. This is a car that you want to ride in rather than drive. And so, if you're on your way to your business meeting, you're on the phone, you're like, checking out, make sure your beard is good or lack thereof. You're making business deals. All right, I'll call you back. That's the sort of idea that I get from back here. Like, you know what this car feels like? You know what I feel like right now? I feel like I'm on the way to tell Nokia, you're done. Hey, listen, Yahoo, you got about 5 more years and then you're done. Hey, AOL, you got a couple years left. Savor it. What other failing mid-2000s companies could I make fun of? People want to see trunks? There you go. Now we got to talk about the looks. I think this car is really, really understated. I think it's classy. I think it's to the point. I think it's no BS, no frills. It doesn't look faster than it is. It doesn't look nicer than it is, but it still does look nice. And I can't help but think of some Yakuza boss in Japan riding in one. These were actually sold as Toyotas under a different name that's escaping me at the moment. I'll put it up on the screen. These were sold as Toyotas in Japan, so obviously you wouldn't be driving around a Lexus. You'd be driving around a Toyota, blah, blah, blah. But this just looks like a wealthy Japanese businessman's car. And I'm not saying completely wealthy, top of the top. It's not Toyota Century wealthy, but it is still nice. If you somewhat made money in 2005, odds are that you would be driven around in one of these. German cars just weren't as big in Japan in the 2000s. And so this was kind of the go-to. Honda didn't really have any executive cars at the time. And so this is it. This is what decently well-off businessmen in Japan rode around in, and that's really, really neat. And so getting to my point, this car was very ahead of its time. You have to look at this car with 2005 eyes. It had heated and cooled seats. It had memory seats. It was the first Lexus offered in the US with radar cruise control, a huge step forward, and something that even some cars don't have being manufactured 14 years later. Dual climate zones, oscillating front vents. Really, this car was very, very much ahead of its time. And so that is really, really cool. Even by modern standards, this car keeps up. And I think that that's the most impressive part, is that jumping in this car 14 years after it was made, I'm still impressed. I'm still happy with it. I still think that this is a good car. I really do like this car. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned something about the 2005 Lexus LS430. Huge thank you to Toyota of Naperville for allowing me to take out their LS430. This car is really, really nice. It definitely holds up, and it really gives me a glimpse of what Lexus was up to in the 2000s. And honestly, they were keeping up with BMW. They were keeping up with Mercedes, and they were keeping up with Audi. They were keeping them on their toes, and I really, really like that. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys. Aside from my soul.